So, chat, there's something I've been wanting to talk to with you about since last week. This news came out about 4 days ago, according to the timestamp on this video. But, one of the things we always hear from conservatives whenever it comes to the topic of, supporting, you know, trans youth or LGBTQ youth, whether it's, somebody who's, in their teen years and they're gay or they're bisexual or they're transgender, anything that falls under the LGBTQ plus banner, a lot of their, positions they claim stem from just trying to quote protect kids. That's what they want to do. Yeah, exactly, Emmy. Think of the children. We're just trying to protect the kids. All right. Now, granted, there's nothing harmful to children about, a kid comes out as gay or trans or something like that, and you're supporting them. You're very supportive of them, and you're understanding of their, who and what they are. There's nothing harmful about that, contrary to what, conservatives will tell you. But they claim that a lot of their positions stem from they just want to protect the kids, right? So explain to me why conservatives are in favor of this decision and Donald Trump and his administration just pulled funding for an LGBTQ suicide hotline for LGBTQ youth. Okay, if this is really about protecting the kids, why are we pulling funding from an extremely valuable lifeline for LGBTQ youth? Anyway, I'm kind of rambling here, but let's go ahead and let's get into it.
LGBTQ youth suicide hotline will end in 30 days after federal funding runs out. That's according to the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration, or SAMHSA. News 5's Maggie Bryan explains the details and spoke with several people who say this could have a huge impact on queer youth.
A sense of safety.
Again, it's just absolutely heartbreaking.
It's what Alicia Nolan says LGBTQ youth need right now.
Family rejection, religious rejection.
I noticed Stewie in the chat is talking about how the main hotline can still be used for everyone, and this is true. So the suicide hotline that they're referring to, this is the 988 number. If you're not familiar with it, maybe you're somebody who's dealing with, maybe you're watching this video and you're dealing with, thoughts of suicidal ideation, or somebody who is, share with them this hotline. It's literally just 988. If you're in the United States, 988 on your phone, and it dials you into a suicide hotline. And as Stewie3387 says, the main hotline can still be used for everyone. And this is true. This is actually true. You can still dial that number, and it is still available for use for everyone. But here's the problem. Here's why this is still an issue. When you're dealing with the subject of LGBTQ youth, there are unique circumstances that apply to LGBTQ people that, they might need, to call or contact some kind of counselor or something that's trained to deal with those unique circumstances that they might deal with. It's the same reason why, if I remember correctly, this same hotline has an option where if you push this button, this will take you to the veterans suicide hotline, because there's unique issues that veterans might deal with. Stuff like dealing with PTSD, trauma associated with, engaging in combat, there's various different issues that are very vet specific. And so they might want to talk to a counselor that specifically caters to, veterans and the kind of trauma they might deal with that would better help them, be consoled in this, desperate time of need, this very important life-saving circumstance, right? And the same applies to LGBTQ people. There are situations that, if you just calling a standard suicide hotline, they might be able to help you. But if you're trying to discuss something with them that's a very specific LGBTQ related issue, and the counselor you're talking to isn't, LGBTQ themselves, or they're not knowledgeable of LGBTQ related issues, they might not be able to provide you the right services you need to address whatever your mental health concern is at the time. Right? And so that's why this is such an issue. Why aren't we cutting funding to the veterans one? Which, to be clear, I'm not in favor of cutting funding to the veterans one. But why is the veterans extension, or whatever you want to call it, where it'll tell you press this to call for veteran services? Why is that not being cut, but the LGBTQ one's being cut? It's because it's not about protecting kids at all. That's the bullshit that conservatives will try to tell you. They just want to erase LGBTQ people from the public eye. That's what they want to do. They want us to hide in our closets. That's all they've ever wanted us to do. And now that we're free to express ourselves openly and freely, they want to shove us back in the closets again. That's the issue here. But anyway, let's continue.
All of these things that LGBTQ plus youth face.
She's been speaking up about mental health resources available ever since her wife died by suicide in 2022.
She didn't know how to get
tragic.
the professional help that she needed, and I didn't know how much she was struggling.
It's always really sad when you lose someone to, a mental health related issue like suicide, for example. I've lost an uncle to suicide, unfortunately. I have another uncle who's attempted, but they're still with us, thank heavens. But they've attempted. And I've also lost a dear friend to suicide as well. Losing anyone to suicide is really, really tragic. It's something that's like, losing someone in general is hard, but specifically like to suicide is really hard because like you constantly like cycle through your mind of like, I could have done more to help. I could have done more to be there for them. I could have done more to be supportive. I should have, reached out to them more often. You start blaming yourself. Like losing someone to suicide is like one of the hardest ways to lose someone because you blame yourself for what happened. It's really, really tragic, and it causes a lot of pain for those people who care a lot about, those affected by it.
Struggling.
One of those resources is the 988 Lifeline. Since 2022, the hotline has given callers the option to press 3 to be connected to specialized
Yes, thank you for sharing that, Zubat. If somebody, maybe one of the mods can pin it. If you want to know more about the suicide hotline, please check out their website, 988lifeline.org. You can call, text, or chat with someone online 24 hours a day. Please reach out if you feel hurt and alone. And like even to the LGBTQ people who are watching this, obviously I'm very upset about the fact that the LGBTQ youth related option has been removed from the suicide hotline, and I really wish that it hadn't been. Hopefully it gets restored at some point in the future. But even if it doesn't have that option anymore, if you're ever feeling like you just need someone to talk to, you're in a really dark place and you just need someone to, like, an ear to hear, this hotline, the general use hotline, is still available. So, still call it. There's people that are there to support you and to help you. It's unfortunate that this specific option isn't available anymore. Well, technically it's still available right now, but it's going away soon. That's unfortunate, but still that hotline is still there available to you. But yeah, let's continue.
LGBTQ youth services. Option 2 sends someone to a Spanish speaker, and option 1 connects the caller to veteran services.
See, so they have the option 1 veteran service, option 2 for Spanish speaking, option 3 was for LGBTQ youth, and that option 3 is going away. So yes, you can still technically use the general use option, but yeah, that having that very specific, counselor that's able to address issues specific to members of the LGBTQ community, especially LGBTQ youth. These are people who, like, when it comes to people who deal with a lot of the issues that face LGBTQ related people the most, it's definitely the younger folks. Like, if you've ever heard the horror stories of, like, a gay kid comes out to their parents and their parents become like abusive to them, or they're not accepted by, their parents or their peers. Same applies to obviously trans people and stuff like that. It's really, really unfortunate. Some of the things that, LGBTQ youth have to deal with. And these services like this are extremely valuable. These are very life-saving things. Like, I don't want to hear from conservatives anymore after this decision how everything is, about thinking about the children, because you're literally stripping these kids of a valuable life-saving. I can't emphasize how important that is. This is a life-saving service. There are probably, hundreds of thousands, potentially even millions of LGBTQ kids whose lives have been saved by this service, and you're cutting this service because to you these people don't matter. When you say it's about protecting kids, it's just fucking lip service. You don't actually give a shit, because if you actually gave a shit, this option would still be available to those kids who need it. It's such bullshit. So tired of hearing about the fucking bullshit of how they just want to protect kids, because this is a clear fucking example of how no you fucking don't. No you fucking don't.
But that third option for LGBTQ youth.
And here's the thing, like, I get it. I understand, like, obviously, like, someone like me, I'm fully plugged into, like, queer related communities. I know the issues they deal with. You know, I may not be necessarily like trans myself, but you know, I have a lot of trans friends. I advocate for a lot of the like pro-trans causes. Like I see these things. I'm familiar with them. I've, you know, taken the time to educate myself on these topics. Like, I understand this stuff, okay? But I get that not everybody is going to understand this stuff, like what it means to be trans, what it means to suffer from gender dysphoria, what it means to be gay when maybe, you know, the parents of the gay kid, they're not gay. Like, you know, I understand that not everybody is going to understand these things, and that's fine. You don't have to understand them to support someone. There was a time when I didn't always understand these issues, you know, long before I myself came out of the closet as pansexual, and like long before I started advocating for the rights of trans people and stuff like that. There was a time when I didn't understand these issues either. But even so, I'm like, look, these people exist just like you and me. They want to be treated respectfully, just like you and me. And they just want the freedom to express themselves for who they are. And I might not understand it, but it doesn't matter. They're not hurting anybody. Just let them be, right? My point is, you don't have to understand it in order to support someone in their own life experience. But, you know, these people that they're in favor of this kind of shit, they don't fucking care. They'll pretend like they care. They fucking don't.
Youth will end on July 17th, as funding to keep the service running will not be renewed. In a statement released on Tuesday, the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Service Administration, or SAMHSA, says the 988 Lifeline will no longer silo LGBTQ youth.
So I want to read the specific statement. June 17th, 2025, on July 17th, the 988 Suicide and Crisis Lifeline will no longer silo LGBT or LGBT. Okay, this was another thing that Trump's administration did when they came in. Any federally funded services or any federal agencies would no longer use the T in the LGBTQ. Like, they would just like summarize it to this. That's fucking ridiculous. Will no longer silo LGBT. See, it's just I just have a habit of saying LGBTQ, but it's just LGB plus here. Youth services, also known as the Press 3 option, to focus on serving all help seekers, including those previously served through the Press 3 option. The Press 3 option was established as a pilot program in fiscal year 2022 under the government agreement with a third party. The fiscal year 2023 omnibus included a congressional directive for $29.7 million to fund the specialized services. Federally funding for FY24 for the Press 3 services increased to $33 million. As of June 2025, more than $33 million in funds have been spent to support the sub-networks, fully expending the monies allocated for the 988 Lifeline LGB plus sub-network services. Everyone who contacts the 988 Lifeline will continue to receive access to skilled, caring, culturally competent crisis counselors who can help with suicidal, substance misuse, or mental health crisis, or any other kind of emotional distress. Anyone who calls the Lifeline will continue to receive compassionate help. So yes, they do still support the main, you know, calling options. Like, you can still call in and, you know, you can still get services. It's just, if you're looking for something that's specifically tailored to LGBTQ plus youth, that's not the case anymore. So you're unfortunately going to have to call, and you're probably going to receive a counselor who's not fully educated or understanding of how, you know, LGBTQ plus youth might have specific issues that they're dealing with that they might need counseling for. And that's beyond unfortunate. Again, this is a very life-saving service for people that deal with these kinds of issues, and it's going to be gone now.
services and will focus on serving all help seekers. SAMHSA says the Press 3 option received $33 million in federal funding in fiscal year 24.
But again, notice that it's just the Press 3 option that's going away. Basically, anything that caters positively to the LGBTQ plus community under the Trump administration, they want that to go away. Anything they funded for these types of specific issues, they're taking it away. They didn't get rid of the veteran option, which again, let me emphasize, I'm not in favor of getting rid of the veteran option. But they didn't get rid of the veteran option. They didn't just streamline it so it's specifically, let's just make it one main hotline for everyone. They didn't even get rid of like the Spanish speaking option or something like that. It's let's keep these two options, but those like queer people, we're not going to worry about them anymore. It's fucking gross.
I think there's a lot.
It's blatantly obvious what's happening here.
Of hurt and stress and anxiety around what message does this send.
Cassandra Walton, the executive director of the Pikes Peak Suicide Prevention Partnership, says ending the service could be devastating.
Republicans don't give a shit about our veterans either. If they did, they wouldn't be denying bills to help get homeless vets off the streets. Yeah, I mean, veterans get treated like shit too. That's like absolutely 100% a fact, Lady Zubat. You're totally right about that. I mean, for fuck's sakes, our current president has gone on to call veterans suckers and losers. That's an actual thing. Look it up.
In all types of mental health is that lived experience is very helpful. Being someone who's part of the demographic that they are helping to serve gives you insight that cannot be found in other ways, and that's what we'll be missing. It would be like if you went to another country and you were lost and you wanted to go to the U.S. Embassy because you wanted to go somewhere that people looked and talked like you.
A 2024 Trevor Project survey showed 39% of LGBTQ youth considered suicide in the past year.
See what I'm talking about? That is a substantial number of people. And this is a very valuable service that is life-saving for these 39% of people. That it's now gone. And sure, they can try their luck with the main hotline. And I'm sure the person on the other end of the line wants them to be just as safe as anybody else who calls in, right? So I'm not saying that. But again, the counselor you're going to get in a general purpose line isn't going to be knowledgeable of the specific issues that the LGBTQ plus youth face every single day. This is a service that they previously were able to call that was the difference between life and death for some of these kids. And it's gone now. And again, I have to emphasize this. I want to make sure it sticks into the heads of anybody who watches this video later on or watches this stream later on or is currently watching it now. I want to make sure it sticks in your head. These people that are in favor of this, conservatives, these people will constantly go on and on about how they're just concerned about the safety of children. This is a big issue that matters to them. Protecting kids. How is taking away a life-changing service that can literally be the difference between life or death for these kids? How is taking that away from them protecting children? Explain it to me. I would genuinely like to understand from someone who is a conservative how this makes sense. How it makes sense and lines up with the statement that you want to protect kids, but let's take away this service that is potentially protecting the lives, saving the lives of tons of kids.
The number jumps to 46% for transgender and non-binary youth.
They had an option to call a number and speak to somebody that they knew were safe.
Nolan says now that safety is being taken away.
So now who can they call? They don't know.
I'm Maggie Bryan, News 5.
Okay, so the only advice I can give to people in my audience who this is obviously an issue that, a lot of people I know in my audience care a lot about. If this is something you guys care a lot about, consider supporting, the charities of other services that support these types of services being made available to LGBTQ plus people. Like one that comes to mind off the top of my head is like the Trevor Project. If you got some money that you have extra laying around and you're willing to support one of these services to keep them afloat so they don't have to be dependent on, federal funding, consider funding one of these services and giving a small donation, whatever you can afford. I'm going to do my best to, before I upload this as a segment to YouTube, to collect a list of different, services like this that do take, donations, so you can help with the funding of this. And I'll leave some links in the pinned comment below the video where you guys can donate to some of these causes. But yeah, this is a very important service. And the fact that it is going away, it can literally mean the difference between life and death for some of these people. So it's really unfortunate that this is what's happening. But, as a community, we kind of have to come together and, help support alternative services so that these services can be available to, members of the LGBTQ plus community. So that's kind of where we're at right now. Doesn't surprise me that, Trump's administration would authorize something like this. But again, it doesn't compute in my brain how you can say you care about the safety of kids and take away a life-saving resource from them. No matter how you slice it, it doesn't fucking make sense.